In 1876, a British naval ship mapped an island in the South Pacific. 50 years later, another expedition went there and found nothing but open sea. Then, in 2012, satellite data revealed it had vanished again. How can an island disappear not once, but twice from the face of the Earth? Sandy Island, a name that sounds harmless, innocent even. But for over a century, it haunted nautical maps, scientific records, and the minds of those who dared to seek it. Located between Australia and New Caledonia, the island was first charted in 1876 by the whaling ship Velocity, and later confirmed by multiple maritime maps, including the Times Atlas of the World and National Geographic Society charts well into the 20th century. Sandy Island wasn't just a cartographer's curiosity. It was accepted geography. It appeared on Google Earth. It was marked by weather and marine data sources, including the CIA World Factbook and the General Bathymetric Chart of the Oceans. It wasn't some ghost story passed through sailors' whispers. It was on the books. It was official, until it wasn't. In November 2012, a team of Australian scientists aboard the RV Southern Surveyor set out to the coordinates of Sandy Island. They expected to find land. What they found was deep ocean. Over 1,400 meters of water, with no seamounts, reefs, or any geological trace of a landmass ever having existed. There was no island. There had never been one, at least not according to the seafloor. The discovery made headlines. Major outlets like the BBC, The Guardian, and National Geographic Society reported on the Phantom Island that had fooled experts for more than a century. But that's where the story should end, right? A cartographic error explained by outdated data. Simple. Except it wasn't. Archived records show that Sandy Island didn't just appear once. It had been removed from French naval maps in the early 1900s and then reappeared on US and British charts decades later. How does an island go missing, get deleted, and then somehow come back, only to vanish again? Even more unsettling is what was seen in satellite imagery before its deletion from Google Earth. Researchers noted a faint smudged black shape in the exact coordinates of Sandy Island. Some dismissed it as a shadow. Others speculated it was an outdated echo of seismic data. But geologists aboard the Southern Surveyor were certain there was no land there. Not now, and not ever. And yet, something doesn't add up. If Sandy Island never existed, where did the data come from? Why did multiple ships from different countries and eras record it independently? Why did NOAA datasets list sea surface anomalies around its supposed location? And why did French hydrographers quietly correct their maps in the early 20th century without issuing a public notice? To this day, no one has offered a conclusive explanation. Some say it was a misidentified pumice raft or floating reef. Others suggest it may have once existed and sunk, though bathymetric scans argue otherwise. There's no underwater mountain, no collapsed caldera, no island shelf, just an expanse of abyssal ocean. Sandy Island wasn't erased by rising seas or tectonic shifts. It was erased from history, and no one knows who did it or why. But Sandy Island was only the beginning, because just across the globe, another island had also vanished, one with far higher stakes, one that would soon trigger an international scandal involving oil rights, satellite cover-ups, and a territory Mexico swore had once existed. Off the northern coast of the Yucatan Peninsula, Mexican maps from as early as 1539 show a tiny island, Isla Bermeja. It wasn't large, barely a speck of land, but its position in the Gulf of Mexico made it geopolitically invaluable. Why? Because under that portion of the Gulf, scientists discovered billions of barrels of oil, untapped and potentially up for grabs. According to Mexican law, if Bermeja existed, Mexico's maritime boundary would extend hundreds of kilometers further into the Gulf, giving the nation a legal claim to enormous underwater oil fields. If it didn't exist, that territory defaulted to international waters and, more importantly, to the United States. That's when Bermeja's disappearance became more than a cartographic mystery. It became a matter of national security. In the 1990s, during sensitive treaty negotiations between the U.S. and Mexico over offshore drilling rights, the Mexican government attempted to enforce maritime boundaries using Bermeja Island as a reference. But when the Mexican Navy sent a surveillance aircraft and multiple expeditions to the coordinates, what they found shocked them. There was nothing, not even a submerged reef, just deep, empty ocean. This wasn't a minor error, it was a geopolitical earthquake. According to National Archives, Bermeja had appeared on maps for nearly 500 years, used in Spanish colonial charts, 19th century naval logs, and mid-20th century Mexican surveys. It was even listed in the 1946 edition of the Mexican Hydrological Atlas. It had coordinates, it had elevation data, but now it had vanished. Almost overnight, conspiracy theories erupted. Some claimed that the United States had intentionally destroyed Bermeja, blowing it up or sinking it in secret to prevent Mexico from claiming oil-rich maritime zones. Others pointed to seismic activity or rising sea levels. But bathymetric studies conducted by UNAM, National Autonomous University of Mexico, found no geological evidence that an island had ever existed there. Just like Sandy Island, the seafloor was too deep for a sunken landmass. There were no underwater ridges, no volcanic remnants, no signs of subduction. It was as if the island had never existed, despite hundreds of years of documentation saying otherwise. In 2000, facing mounting pressure, the Mexican Congress launched an official investigation. Senators openly discussed the theory that Bermeja had been made to disappear for political reasons. No proof was found, no confession surfaced, but the damage was done. In 2000, Mexico signed a treaty with the United States defining the Western Gap, a contested maritime zone in the Gulf. Without Bermeja as a legal reference, Mexico lost its extended claim. The U.S. gained access to the disputed oil fields. The Mexican public erupted. Bermeja became a national symbol of betrayal, erasure, and geopolitical manipulation. And to this day, no one knows what really happened to it. But here's the twist. Sandy Island and Bermeja weren't the only ones. Across the planet, dozens of other phantom islands have appeared and vanished over centuries. Some were due to mapping errors, others were wishful thinking, but a select few, like Hy-Brasil, Thule, and Maida, continue to defy all logical explanation. In some cases, they were seen by hundreds of witnesses, then never again. Are these isolated incidents, or are we looking at a deeper, hidden pattern? In the next act, we go further back, before satellites, before GPS, to an island that appeared in the same place century after century, on maps created by sailors who never met, and claimed to have seen the same strange lights hovering above it.
Long before GPS satellites and modern cartography, sailors of the Old World navigated by instinct, celestial patterns, and rumor. And no legend captured their imaginations more than a spectral island that seemed to hover just beyond reach, Hy-Brasil. The first known reference dates back to 1325 on the map of the Genoese cartographer Angelino Dulcert. There it was, a perfect circular island west of Ireland, labeled simply Brazil. Not to be confused with the country of the same name, which hadn't even been colonized yet. Over the centuries, Hy-Brasil kept reappearing on different maps. The Pisigano chart in 1351, the Catalan Atlas of 1375, and even British naval charts as late as the 1800s. Always in the same place, roughly 200 miles west of Galway Bay. But the most disturbing part, dozens of sailors and explorers claimed to have actually seen it. In 1497, a Bristol merchant ship led by John Cabot reported sailing near a strange island shrouded in perpetual mist. They described glints of light dancing in the air above it, orbs moving in patterns like they were watching. The island was said to vanish if approached, only visible on certain days. A few legends even claimed it emerged from the sea every 7 years, visible for just hours before vanishing again. In 1674, a renowned Irish historian named Captain John Nisbet claimed to have landed on Hy-Brasil. He described an ethereal place, populated by tall beings in long robes who communicated without speaking. Nisbet's crew reported an atmosphere thick like syrup and clocks that malfunctioned. Time behaved differently there. The British government dismissed the account as myth, but what they didn't dismiss was the strategic interest. Royal Navy expeditions continued throughout the 18th century, some shrouded in secrecy. And though none found the island again, multiple ships reported radar interference, unexplained weather shifts, and instruments going haywire in the same approximate location. But then, something chilling happened. In 1980, nearly 600 years after its first recorded sighting, British maritime surveillance data picked up a radar anomaly off the west coast of Ireland. The weather was clear. No clouds, no fog. But for exactly 12 minutes, a massive object appeared where Hy-Brasil was supposed to be. Then, nothing. Around the same time, across the Irish Sea, a separate event unfolded that would send shockwaves through the UFO research community. The Rendlesham Forest incident in Suffolk, England. Multiple U.S. Air Force personnel stationed at RAF Woodbridge reported a triangular craft descending into the forest. But here's the twist. During hypnosis debriefings, one of the witnesses, Staff Sergeant Jim Peniston, claimed the craft had conveyed a binary message into his mind. When later translated, part of the coordinates pointed not to Suffolk, but to the exact location of Hy-Brasil. What does that mean? Could this ancient island of mist, orbs, and time distortions have been a point of contact, or something else entirely? Some researchers believe Hy-Brasil wasn't just a myth, but a geophysical anomaly, a dimensional rift, an intermittent landmass, or even a cloaked structure only visible at certain frequencies. Others think it's been deliberately hidden, a vanishing point protected or maintained by forces unknown. But Hy-Brasil is not alone in this strange behavior. In the Pacific, legends speak of an island so alluring, sailors were said to abandon ship just to reach it, only to vanish completely. Unlike Hy-Brasil, it was visible more often, but its visitors never returned. In the next act, we explore the haunting tales of the island that devours.
The sea has always been a mirror for our fears. And in the emptiest stretches of ocean, the line between superstition and death can vanish like a breath on cold glass. In the heart of the Tuamotu archipelago in the South Pacific lies a ring of islands, gorgeous, untouched, and hauntingly quiet. Among them is Napuka, also known by older Polynesian names which translate loosely to the mouth or the hunger. The locals avoid it. Why? Because people go there and don't come back. One of the earliest modern reports came from a French naval patrol in 1901, investigating missing trade canoes between nearby islands. A log entry from the corvette Caprichoise noted, "Strange silence envelops Napuka. No birds, no surf, only the wind and something watching." They never found the missing canoes, but they did find sails, torn and floating in a lagoon. During World War II, the U.S. Navy established a small seaplane refueling station nearby. In 1943, 2 pilots crash-landed on Napuka during a storm. They radioed in, "We're alive, setting up camp, coordinates locked." Rescue arrived 11 hours later. There was no trace of the men, no wreckage, no radio, not even footprints in the sand. The beach looked undisturbed. After the war, a local anthropologist named Tepa Adapano collected dozens of oral legends from elders across the region. One repeated theme was this: Napuka was not an island, but a mouth or a gate. Some stories told of travelers who fell asleep on its shore only to wake up surrounded by black sea foam, their vision flickering like a dying candle. Others spoke of hearing singing from the trees, low, melodic, impossible to resist. Sailors often described this siren song as the last sound before blacking out, only to awaken days later adrift with no memory of how they escaped or why everyone else was gone. A chilling report came in 1971 when Japanese explorer Mikio Tanaka documented his short expedition to Napuka. His diary, recovered by a rescue vessel 3 weeks later, was water-damaged but partially legible. One of the final entries read, "Third night, fog all day, equipment dead. Singing came from the palms last night. I followed it inland, found carvings, circles, and triangles etched into the coral like a pattern. Time is wrong here. It's always dusk. I feel watched." Mikio's body was never found, but satellite analysis later showed a sudden temperature drop of 9 degrees Celsius over Napuka at the time of his last recorded position. Scientists could not explain it. Strangest of all, a NOAA weather balloon launched over Napuka in 1992 sent back irregular electromagnetic readings, sharp, sudden pulses as if something was jamming the signal from the ground. Then it burst prematurely. When the fragments were retrieved by a research vessel, the team found the balloon's memory card intact. It had stored one final image, a distorted, overexposed frame that analysts described as resembling a massive black spiral, rotating like a whirlpool in the air. Since then, Napuka has been removed from most tourist maps. Cargo ships reroute around it. The French Polynesian government officially cites it as a protected wildlife zone, off-limits due to unstable terrain. But even military GPS systems still register anomalies over its location. No storm, no interference, just silence. The idea of a devouring island may sound like folklore, but how do we explain these missing people, scrambled instruments, and disappearing time? There's one more legend that might hold a key. A story of a place that doesn't devour you, but replaces you.
What if the island you saw wasn't real? Or worse, what if it was, but not from our world? In 1955, a British cargo freighter named the RMS Triton was en route from Papua New Guinea to Samoa when its crew spotted an uncharted island, a perfect half-circle lined with volcanic black cliffs and patches of luminous green moss. Captain Reginald Gray noted it in the log. Emergent landmass, possibly new volcanic activity, unusual blue haze above terrain. They dropped anchor and launched a landing party. What followed was stranger than fiction. The team of 5 returned to the ship within the hour, visibly shaken. One sailor, mid-sentence, began screaming uncontrollably and had to be restrained. The others claimed the island was wrong. The horizon bent inward. Footprints made in the sand vanished seconds later. Compasses spun wildly, and voices echoed with a delay. Most disturbing of all was the report from ship's botanist, Dr. Elaine Holcroft. She described a grove of trees that seemed to hum softly, trees with bark that resembled human skin. She attempted to collect samples, but they disintegrated upon touch. One tree she claimed whispered her own name back to her. The island had no animal life, no insects, no sound, just the crew's own breathing, amplified. When Triton reported the sighting to naval authorities in Sydney, the coordinates were recorded, but when aircraft were sent days later, there was nothing there. Open ocean, no trace of land, no disturbance in the seabed. Even satellite imagery failed to show anything. This wasn't an isolated event. In 1976, a Filipino fishing boat named San Martin radioed from the South China Sea, claiming they drifted near an island with a lighthouse, visible through dense fog. They even described a figure waving from the top. As they neared, their engines failed. All electronic gear stopped functioning. They dropped anchor, terrified. At dawn, the fog cleared, and the island was gone. Divers later inspected the area and found no submerged structures, no rocks, no landmass. But they did find one thing: an old, barnacle-encrusted brass plaque, the kind used on maritime buildings. The inscription? Hawthorne Station, Estate 1893, property of the Royal Maritime Authority. That station never existed. No record, no registry. Some theorists now believe these islands may be dimensional echoes, geographical ghosts from another version of Earth flickering into view through cracks in the electromagnetic fabric. In physics, it's been suggested that massive energy disturbances, like geomagnetic storms or gravitational waves, might briefly cause overlapping realities, causing a structure or landmass from another Earth to momentarily appear. Think of a scratched CD skipping between songs. Others believe these islands aren't errors, but invitations, that something on the other side is pushing them through, testing our world for fear, for entry points. In 2020, an amateur satellite tracker in New Zealand captured thermal footage of a square-shaped landmass appearing in the South Pacific for exactly 7 minutes before vanishing. The coordinates matched the Triton's 1955 log entry. Coincidence or recurrence? Whatever the truth, one thing is clear. Not every island belongs on this Earth. And if some of them come from elsewhere, what else might follow?
Sometimes the island isn't just missing after the fact. Sometimes it disappears as you approach it. Throughout modern maritime history, sailors and researchers have documented the same chilling phenomenon. Islands that exist on radar are visible through binoculars, even photographed, yet somehow vanish before landfall. These aren't the delusions of lone sailors. We're talking about entire naval crews, trained scientists, and satellite verifications until everything changes in the final approach. Take the case of Hy-Brasil, a phantom island said to lie west of Ireland. Throughout the 14th to 19th centuries, this island appeared on nautical maps with remarkable consistency. Often shown as a circular landmass with a central mountain, it was documented by explorers, including John Cabot in 1497, who claimed he'd seen it but couldn't reach it due to stormy waters. In 1674, Captain John Nisbet, an Irish seafarer, wrote in his logs that he did land on the island. He described it as lush, covered in strange stone ruins, and said the locals were tall, pale men with black eyes who spoke perfect Latin. He returned with strange metallic artifacts that he claimed came from an underground temple, but the Royal Geographical Society never verified them. Within months, Captain Nisbet's ship was lost in the North Atlantic, no wreckage ever found. By the 1800s, Hy-Brasil disappeared from all official charts. And yet, in 1980, during a NATO surveillance mission, radar picked up a landmass briefly visible off the coast of Ireland, matching Hy-Brasil's centuries-old coordinates. When reconnaissance aircraft approached, cloud cover obscured the region. Upon breaking through the mist, nothing. Open sea. A similar event occurred in 2002 when a NOAA research vessel tracking seismic activity off the South American coast received signals of an above-sea-level landmass 300 kilometers west of Chile. They deployed a drone which captured one frame, just one, showing a jagged coastline with obsidian cliffs. Then the feed went black. When the drone was retrieved, its internal memory was wiped. Engineers blamed electromagnetic interference. But the ship's external radar logs still showed the landmass for 17 minutes. In 2015, Google Earth users claimed to spot a small island in the South Pacific, just northeast of New Caledonia. Its terrain was triangular, with a central black ridge. It gained attention on Reddit and scientific forums. Within 48 hours, the coordinates were scrubbed clean. No satellite evidence remained. Google later claimed it was a digital rendering error. But multiple users posted saved screenshots showing otherwise. Some believe that these vanishings are not glitches of technology or the sea, but part of a larger camouflage system, a cloaking phenomenon rooted in non-human technology. There's even a term for it in fringe science: dimensional occlusion events. It suggests that certain locations on Earth are accessible only during rare electromagnetic alignments, possibly linked to geomagnetic ley lines, planetary orbits, or even artificial triggers. The biggest question remains: why? Why would a landmass reveal itself only to vanish as someone nears it? Is it to lure? To warn? Or is it simply not meant for us? One unsettling theory suggests these aren't just lost islands. They are protected zones, preserved by an intelligence older than us, shielded from human interference. Places we were never supposed to reach. Not yet. So the next time you look at a map and see nothing but blue ocean, ask yourself, what's really out there? Because maybe, just maybe, the world we think we know is missing a few pieces, and some of them are still moving.